I am the owner of a civil engineering firm up here, and I have 7 full-time employees. Last fiscal year, we did $2 million in gross.
Way to go.
And thank you, sir. About a year ago, just a little over a year ago, the current CEO of the company passed away, and I was a 10% shareholder at the time, and I was the VP. He was the only other shareholder, and I became the only shareholder in the company and took on leadership. I'm at the point where I have a coworker who's been with the company about 7-8 years, and I'd like to bring him on as a partner in the company.
Why?
But I'm sure for legacy, for keeping the company going in the future.
How old are you?
I am 41.
So why do you need a partner to keep the company going?
It's also to keep him in the company. Being a professional firm, he's pretty easy for him to step out and start his own firm or to join another firm as a partner. And it's a way we keep skilled engineers who are at the top of their game and keep them in the company.
All right, so you bought out the family when the other guy died.
Yes, sir.
And you own 100%. And
Yes,
you're
sir.
going to gift or sell a portion of your ownership to this one person who's been with you 7 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what percentage are they going to get?
10%.
And what are they paying for that?
That was a part we're working on right now. And that's part of why I'm calling. Previously, the amount of shares in the company and the value of those shares has not changed since the late 70s. And that share is what we have for retained earnings, which has become an issue for having working capital in the company. And that's where I'm trying to change that moving forward.
Wait a minute. Today you own 100% of the shares. You can change the valuation to whatever you want it to be.
Yes, sir.
And the retained earnings is yours 100%. So why do you not have access to it?
I do have access to it.
Okay. So why is it an issue? The retained earnings are not an issue. You have access to them. And the valuation of the stock price is not an issue. You can change your share price, just recalculate it, recast it with your CPA. It's not hard.
No, it comes into handling retained earnings under a partnership. And my question comes in as to whether to have that as shares or have it sitting as cash. And I was seeing an issue with cash. It can be an issue as we get down the road.
Okay, retained earnings by definition is cash. It's not shares.
Correct.
You can't have retained earnings in shares.
The shares end up, putting the money into the business would end up being working capital for the company.
Oh, you're saying when he buys into the business to buy his shares, that money, is that what we're talking about?
Right. And just dealing with that in the future, and especially when we do profit sharing distributions and needing to increase working capital.
Okay. How much in retained earnings do you have today?
Currently, it's the last fiscal year's revenue, which is about $400,000.
So you're sitting on $400,000 cash in the business?
Correct.
Good for you. Okay. Then if he were to buy into the business, you're going to charge him for 10%, $40,000 cash for his share of retained earnings. And you're going to charge him for his shares in addition to that.
Correct.
Okay. So then he owns 10% of retained earnings from that point forward.
Correct.
And distribution of profits will be 10% to him, 90% to you.
Yes.
So what's your question?
We're looking at increasing that retained earnings in the future and using the profit from the company to do that.
Yeah, that would be normal. And if you did that, that would be 90% on your back and 10% on his back. So if you make $100,000 to the bottom line and you say, we're going to put all of that into retained earnings, effectively, he's putting in 10 and you're putting in 100 because you didn't distribute it. Or you're putting in 90, he's putting in 10 because you didn't distribute it, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's all just divvied up by the percentages.
Okay. Yeah, and I was just looking at just making sure I was looking at different options on how to make it make sense for any partner that was in the company for understanding.
Well, each person that buys in would buy into at the percentage that they're buying in would buy into the percentage of the then retained earnings. 2 years from now, you might have 600,000. And if another person wanted to buy 10%, it's going to cost them 60 grand plus share price. Right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, that was just a different way to approach the issue. I just was trying to get your thoughts because I'm sure this was something you had considered.
No, I don't have partners. I don't have any partners at all. I've not considered it for 5 seconds. But it's just a math equation. But and what you're talking about in a professional organization like a doctor, a law firm, a medical firm, and yes, engineering or architects do this a lot too. It is a professional partnership. It's not that unusual. Now, here's the thing. You need to find a template, Ben, and you can probably find one with find some best practices template for the partnership agreement with some other engineering firms. But here's the things you have to make sure your partnership agreement covers. We call them all the D's, okay? Death, what happens if he dies? Well, you've experienced that. You got to buy the guy out, right? But we need to spell that out. Disability, what happens if he's not able to work? Can he remain a partner? No. He gets bought out probably in your scenario, but let's find a template and be in agreement to that. Drug use, I'm going to fire his butt. He's doing cocaine. Now how do we get him out of here? And what does that cost us? Default. He won't do his part. He doesn't show up at work anymore, but he still wants to be an owner. I just don't like disinterest. I want work-life balance. I don't want to work anymore, and or some kind of bull crap, right? And so, what are you going to do in that event? Divorce. You get a divorce. What happens to his shares in the divorce? You need to state in there that it only can be owned by a working member of the firm. Thus, the ex-wife doesn't end up being your partner. God help you, right? So you need to cover all of these eventualities in the partnership agreement. Otherwise, they're going to happen and you're going to have a problem. But if it's already spelled out exactly what the buyout formula is or what the process is, how the calculation is done, and it won't be on 1972 share price either. You need to update your share price annually. You go back and recast and recalculate your share prices and reset them for purposes of executing one of the problems in the partnership agreement. He decides he just wants to leave. You want him to leave. What's the calculation? I don't want a negotiation at that point. I want a preset math formula based on a percentage of retained earnings and based on share price at the time, with the agreement to reset the share price every 24 months or whatever the number is. And so he knows exactly in the eventuality that he needs to leave or dies or is disabled or whatever. Here's how it's going to be calculated, and no surprises, no negotiation. I'm not negotiating with the divorce attorney. No, thank you. No, thank you. It's a bad thing. Now, the valuation of his shares may come up in the divorce, but we're going to lay out exactly what can occur here, what can't occur, who can end up being an owner, and who can't. I have a friend who is a partner in a large architectural firm, went through a divorce, and he was very happy that he's a partner. It's a big firm. That he was very happy that they had a very clear set of documentation of who could do what in the event of a divorce. And so it was never in play that his ex-wife was going to end up with his shares of his decades of service to that professional organization. Now, the valuation did come up and enter into the split when they split the goodies up. But still, the actual, he didn't lose his partnership position in that. So anyway, all that to say, you need to do all that stuff, and then you just need to lay out a math formula with or without retained earnings. But it is fair for them to buy into the retained earnings. They shouldn't get 10% just for share price of your $400,000. And if you try to say, okay, everything after this you get 10% of, then you've constantly got this other $400,000 hanging on to the math formula along the bottom, and it's always recalculating and shuffling, and you're always dodging the bullet around that. So I would just have him buy into it if it was me. That's how I would lay it out. So interesting discussion, Ben. And I would avoid this as long as I can. I'd put it off as long as I can. I wouldn't just automatically assume this is how business has to be done. Because as you can tell from our short discussion, this is a freaking barrel of fish hooks, dude.